The paradox of life is, the stronger someone becomes, the more fragile their inner world feels. Strength looks steady from the outside. It reads like competence, discipline, control. People admire it. They lean on it. They trust it. But beneath that steady surface lies a delicate interior, a private space that softens a little more each time the world demands endurance. Those who carry other people's weight learn early that falling apart is not an option, so they hold, quietly, skillfully, habitually. Over time, that holding becomes identity. The praise becomes expectation. The expectation becomes pressure. And the person who seems unbreakable grows more easily bruised inside. Their life is a kind of careful balance, glass held in gloved hands, beautiful, functional, fragile. No one asks how that glass is polished. No one notices the hairline cracks. They only notice that it continues to reflect light. Yet the truth remains. Strength and fragility can coexist in a single heart, and when they do, the cost often goes unseen until someone finally cracks the surface. There comes a moment in every strong person's life when their composure slips. Not publicly, not dramatically, but in the quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't need permission to reveal what someone has been holding for far too long. It's the instant they realize strength has protected them and also isolated them, that all the endurance the world admired came from wounds no one ever bothered to ask about, that the resilience they were praised for grew from places they never had time to heal. And buried inside that realization sits a question most adults avoid because of how sharply it cuts into the truth. What if the strength you built to survive is the same strength that has kept you from being truly understood? It is a strange contradiction. How people rely on the strong without ever wondering what their strength is covering. How capability becomes misinterpreted as invulnerability. How the one who steadies everyone else becomes the one no one ever thinks to check on. And somewhere in that contradiction, a quieter ache grows. Who protects the person who protects everyone else? Marcus Hale had spent most of his life being the one people leaned on, not because he asked for the role, and not because he enjoyed carrying it, but because someone and life had chosen him early. He was 9 years old the first time someone called him the strong one. His mother sat at the kitchen table in their house in Columbus, Ohio, crying softly after another argument with his father. His little sister hid in her room, and Marcus, still small enough that his feet didn't reach the floor, filled a glass of water, walked over quietly, and placed it beside her trembling hands. She looked at him like he had held the world together. "You're my rock, baby," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Most children would have felt proud. Marcus felt responsible. By the time he reached adulthood, responsibility wasn't something he did. It was who he was. It lived in his shoulders, in his voice, in the way he anticipated problems before anyone else even saw them forming. He didn't choose to be reliable. He simply didn't know how not to be. At 38, he lived in Denver, working as a project manager at a large engineering firm, where emergencies never waited their turn, and deadlines stacked like geological layers. Marcus was calm during crises. Too calm, some would say. He absorbed tension the way others absorbed oxygen. He stepped in before anyone panicked. He took the blame so others wouldn't spiral. Coworkers called him unshakable, bulletproof, the guy you want in the room when everything is falling apart. Marcus smiled at the compliments, but every one of them felt like another brick, stacked quietly onto the walls he lived behind. No one ever asked what it cost him to be the person who never broke. His condo in the Highlands neighborhood was immaculate. Minimalist furniture, soft lighting, shelves arranged with mathematical symmetry. It was the only place in his life where nothing demanded anything from him. But some nights, as he sat on the edge of his bed, the silence felt like a weight pressing into his ribs. Not painful, just heavy. The kind of heaviness that didn't come from sadness, but from feeling unseen in a way he didn't know how to name. He wasn't lonely. Not exactly. He had friends, coworkers, a respectable career. But loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of being known. And Marcus had spent so many years being strong that no one knew where his fault lines were. Not even him. Everything started to shift the day Elena Ruiz joined his team. She had moved from Santa Fe sharp, thoughtful, and observant in a way people rarely allowed themselves to be in corporate spaces. She noticed what others ignored. She listened like she was taking in more than words. She asked questions people didn't expect. And she noticed Marcus. Not the version everyone else saw. The polished professional who never flinched, but the small flickers he tried to hide. The way his jaw tightened when something disappointed him. The way he brushed off concern so naturally. It sounded like muscle memory. The way he said, "I'm good," before anyone even finished asking. For weeks, she didn't push. But she paid attention. One evening, the office had thinned out after a brutal day of back-and-forth client calls. Marcus stayed late, shoulders tense, reviewing a project timeline he already knew he'd fix alone. Elena walked by, paused, and leaned lightly against his doorway. "Do you ever go home before dark?" she teased. He gave a practiced smile. "Deadlines." She tilted her head. "You know, you don't have to carry everything alone. People can help, even with the small stuff." And Marcus laughed softly, like it was a joke. "It's fine, I've got it." "You say that," she said gently, "like it's supposed to convince me." For a moment, the room felt strangely still, as if someone had opened a door he'd been keeping closed for years. He changed the subject quickly. She let him, but the comment lodged itself somewhere deep. Over the next weeks, their connection grew in the quiet ways that matter. Shared lunches, parking garage conversations, gentle teasing about his color-coded spreadsheets. Marcus found himself exhaling around her in a way he didn't do with anyone else. Connection is a doorway, and doorways reveal fragility. The moment everything cracked open came during a late September evening. A client had exploded over a missed deliverable. Marcus, as always, smoothed it over, absorbing the blow, calming the team, fixing the fallout. After the call, he slipped into an empty conference room, sat down, pressed the heel of his hand against his brow. The posture looked too still, too tight, like he was holding back a tremor. Elena saw the cracked open door and stepped inside. "Marcus," she said softly, "talk to me." "I'm fine," he answered instantly, habitually. Reflexively, she pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "You don't have to be fine with me." His jaw tightened. His eyes stayed glued to the floor. The silence stretched. Then something inside him buckled, just enough to let the truth slip out. "I don't know how to not be strong." Elena didn't flinch. She didn't pity him. She didn't rush to fix anything. She simply looked at him with the kind of understanding that makes a person feel visible, maybe for the first time. "Strength isn't the absence of fragility," she whispered. "It's allowing both to exist." He inhaled sharply, a breath edged with years of quiet endurance. "I don't want to fall apart," he said. "You won't," she murmured. "You'll just be human." And that's enough. That small, fractured moment became the beginning of something he didn't yet understand. In the following weeks, he let her in, slowly, cautiously, one fragment at a time. A story from childhood, a fear he'd never spoken, a moment of doubt he'd always kept hidden. Elena held each piece gently, steadily, without asking for more. But vulnerability is not linear. When a major project crisis erupted in late October, deadlines collapsing, clients furious, the team panicking, Marcus snapped back into his old self. The steady one, the fixer, the shield. He stayed late, skipped meals, took every hit before it landed on anyone else. And he didn't call Elena, didn't ask for help, didn't let her see the weight. One night, near midnight, he returned home and sat on the floor of his living room, back against the couch, hands shaking from sheer exhaustion. His phone buzzed. A message from Elena. "You're not made of steel. I wish you'd let someone prove that you don't have to be." He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he pressed call. Elena answered on the second ring, voice soft with sleep. "Marcus?" He couldn't speak at first. His breath trembled. "Can you stay on the phone with me?" he asked quietly. Her answer was immediate. Of course. They didn't talk about the project, or the stress, or the strength he had slipped back into. They just breathed in the same quiet. And in that soft, fragile silence, Marcus realized something he had avoided his entire life. The strongest thing he had ever done was finally letting someone hold a piece of his world with him. Strength, the kind people admire, is almost always built on top of something tender. The world sees composure, competence, calm under pressure. But beneath that exterior lives a nervous system trained to hold its breath. Marcus's life is a clear reflection of a truth psychology has known for decades. People who grow up in instability often become the adults who stabilize everything around them, not because they choose the role, but because the role once protected them. As a child, Marcus learned that his mother's emotional weather could shift an entire room. He learned that his sister looked to him for signals of safety. He learned that calmness could soften conflict in ways crying or panicking never could. This is the origin of what psychologists call adaptive responsibility, the instinct to manage external chaos as a way to feel internally secure. By adulthood, this adaptation becomes mistaken for personality. People say things like, "He's so dependable, he never loses it. He's rock solid." But what they're really seeing is a child who grew into a professional crisis absorber because he never unlearned how to hold everything inside. Another mechanism at play is functional resilience, a term used to describe people whose competence blinds others to their needs. They handle stress so well that people assume they're not experiencing stress at all. They absorb emotional shockwaves without visibly flinching. They steady the room so others don't have to steady them. Their silence becomes invisible labor. In Marcus's case, his team relied on his composure so deeply that no one even imagined he might be struggling. It wasn't neglect. It was a blind spot, a common one. People only respond to what they can see, and strong people hide the signs so effectively that no one knows where their cracks are. Underneath this is a quieter, more complicated pattern, avoidant émotionnel coping. When someone learns early that naming their feelings doesn't create comfort, that honesty becomes burden, that fear is too much, that vulnerability shifts the balance of a room, their nervous system internalizes a rule. Don't show the softer parts. Handle it yourself. Stay composed. Stay small. Stay safe. Marcus didn't tell Elena, "I'm fine," because he was lying. He said it because he genuinely didn't know how to say anything else. The sentence had become muscle memory. Another deeper force shaping Marcus's life is something researchers call asymmetric emotional labor. When one person in a family system consistently carries more emotional weight than they receive, over time, this creates an internal belief. I am the one people rely on. I am not the one who relies. This belief doesn't disappear in adulthood. It follows a person into relationships, into workplaces, into moments when they most need help but least know how to ask for it. Marcus didn't withhold vulnerability from Elena out of pride. He withheld it out of fear. Fear that letting someone see him crack would make him lose the role he had been praised for his entire life. And yet, humans weren't built to live without being known. The human nervous system regulates through connection, not isolation, through co-regulation, not solitary endurance. This is why Marcus broke, not with anger, but with a trembling truth he had never spoken. I don't know how to not be strong. That sentence is not weakness. It is unlearning, a doorway, a beginning. Moments like that, moments when a lifelong adaptation no longer fits, are pivotal in therapy. They mark the point where a person realizes that their strength has become too narrow, too rigid, too lonely, and the presence of someone like Elena is what makes the shift possible. Not because she rescues him, not because she fixes him, but because she mirrors something back. You are human. You are allowed to lean. You do not have to carry everything alone. For the first time in his life, Marcus experiences what psychologists describe as earned, secure support. Support that arrives in adulthood, teaching the nervous system a gentler way to exist. His call to Elena late that night wasn't a plea for rescue. It was permission, a small, fragile permission to no longer grip his world alone. And that permission is how strong people begin to heal. Evelyn Carter had always been the kind of person people trusted without hesitation. Not because she demanded trust, and not because she spoke with authority, but because something in her presence made others feel safe long before she ever said a word. In the hospital where she worked, a busy regional medical center just outside Santa Rosa, Her coworkers often joked that nothing could shake her, that she was the calmest person in the building, that she handled pressure better than most machines they relied on. But calmness can be a disguise, and strength can be a story someone learned to play long before adulthood rewrote the script. Evelyn never corrected them. She simply smiled, nodded, and kept moving through fluorescent-lit nights, moving through back-to-back emergencies, moving through rooms where fear and grief hit her like invisible waves. She had learned, early in life, that movement kept the cracks from spreading. She had been the steady one in her family for as long as she could remember. Her mother had struggled with unpredictable moods, and her father, gentle, soft-spoken, worked long hours to keep everything afloat. Evelyn stepped into the gaps without being asked. She helped her younger brother with homework. She managed small crises before they became big ones. She smoothed tension the way other kids smoothed wrinkles in bedsheets. Strength became her role. Responsibility became her language. Calmness became her identity. By the time she turned 39, those traits were no longer choices. They were reflexes. Outside of work, her life looked composed. A neat townhouse with lavender blooming by the fence. A kitchen organized with quiet precision. A weekend routine that looked peaceful from the outside. Morning coffee, grocery runs, tending the herb garden, visiting her father on Sundays. People admired her discipline. But no one asked how exhausting it was to live a life that never allowed her to slacken her grip. Not even Mark. He'd been her partner for almost 2 years. Stable, intelligent, predictable in the way she once believed she needed. He appreciated her steadiness. He admired her resilience. He relied on her emotional clarity to make sense of his own frustrations. But he never saw the heaviness she carried beneath all that steadiness. Not because he was cold or uncaring, but because Evelyn never gave him a map of her inner world. Strong people forget that no one can enter a room they keep locked. One night in early spring, after a brutal 14-hour shift, she came home feeling a kind of exhaustion that filled her bones like wet concrete. She walked into Mark's house, still wearing her scrubs, hands trembling from adrenaline that hadn't yet released its hold. He didn't look up from his tablet. "Dinner's in the oven," he said. "You okay?" Yeah, just a long day." The truth hovered on her tongue. A 19-year-old trauma patient. A grieving mother's scream. A code blue that stretched too long, but she swallowed it. Mark launched into a story about work frustrations, and she stood there in the doorway, listening, nodding, trying to stay upright while her body begged to collapse. He didn't notice. He didn't ask again. And she didn't give him a reason to. Over the next weeks, the pattern deepened. Evelyn carried her exhaustion quietly. Mark continued talking through his days. She held her breath through every feeling she didn't know how to express. But fragility grows when unspoken. It builds in layers, silent, heavy, invisible, until the smallest moment becomes the one that finally cracks it open. That moment came on a warm May evening. Her father had fallen earlier that morning, a minor fracture, a few bruised ribs, but enough to terrify her in a way she hadn't expected. She held his hand in the emergency room. She soothed him. She coordinated everything. And by nightfall, her composure was a thin, trembling thread. When she walked into Mark's kitchen, he took one look at her and said, "Whoa, you look rough." The words hit harder than they should have. She tried to explain. "My dad fell. He's okay, but it scared me." Instead of softening, he sighed, long, frustrated, as if her fear were another item on his to-do list. "Babe, you've got to stop getting worked up over everything. Your stress level is through the roof. You need to calm down. Calm down." For years, she had been the calm one for everyone else. Patients, co-workers, family, even him. She had absorbed crisis after crisis. She had held steady through grief that wasn't hers. She had given the world her strongest parts while hiding the parts that trembled. And now, in the one moment she needed support, the world asked her to shrink again. Something inside her stilled. Not rage, not shock, something ketter, a realization she could no longer swallow. "I just wanted support," she said softly. "I am supporting you," he insisted. "I made dinner. You're just dramatic when you're tired." The word dramatic broke something in her. Not loudly, but cleanly. She lowered herself onto the couch, feeling something inside her begin to loosen. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "Do what?" he asked. "Pretend I'm okay all the time." A breath. "Pretend I don't break." Another breath. "Pretend I don't feel everything I've carried." "You're overreacting. You just need sleep." "No." Her voice was steady now. "I need someone who sees me." Silence filled the room, the first honest silence in months. Evelyn stood, placed her keys on the counter, and walked out into the warm night air. She didn't slam the door. She didn't look back. She didn't apologize for finally reaching the limit no one knew she had. And when she reached her car, the tears came. Not the restrained kind, but the kind that feel like release. For the first time in her life, she wasn't crying because she was fragile. She was crying because she finally allowed herself to be. A quiet truth rose inside her, soft but undeniable. Strength had kept her alive, but honesty, fragile, trembling, human honesty, was what might finally let her live. Evelyn's story reveals something subtle but universal. Strength, when carried too long without rest, becomes indistinguishable from emotional isolation. People often assume strong individuals have thicker skin, stronger boundaries, greater resilience, or more internal stability. But psychology paints a different picture. One that explains how someone like Evelyn can appear unshakable on the surface, while quietly eroding beneath the weight she carries. Her entire adult life rested on one unspoken psychological rule she learned as a child. If I am strong, everything will stay stable. But strength learned in childhood is not empowerment. It is adaptation. And adaptations that form in childhood rarely remain harmless in adulthood. 3 psychological mechanisms shaped Evelyn's inner world. The parentified child pattern. Though the story only hints at it, Evelyn's early life carried all the markers of emotional parentification. She stepped into responsibilities that were too large for her. She became the steady one because instability terrified her. She learned to regulate other people's emotions because she had no choice. Children who grow up this way often develop exceptional caregiving skills, compassion, reliability, emotional intelligence. But they also learn something dangerous. Their needs are secondary. Their feelings are optional. Their role is to absorb, not express. By adulthood, this pattern looks like strength, but internally, it feels like obligation. Evelyn's steadiness wasn't confidence. It was conditioning. Functional overcapacity. In psychology, there is a concept called functional overcapacity, the tendency to handle so much for so long that others stop noticing the weight entirely. People like Evelyn become too good at managing pressure. Their competence becomes their camouflage. Their calmness becomes their reputation. Their resilience becomes the thing everyone depends on. And dependence slowly becomes expectation. Coworkers relied on her steadiness. Patients relied on her competence. Her partner relied on her clarity. Her family relied on her emotional maturity. But no one asked whether she had anything left to give. Not out of selfishness, but because Evelyn never showed them her limits. And when a person hides their limits long enough, the world forgets they have any. 3. The visibility gap. The core of the paradox lies here, in what psychologists call the visibility gap. Strong people appear whole because they hide the fractures. Strong people appear calm because they silence the chaos. Strong people appear fine because they refuse to fall apart publicly. People only respond to what they can see. And Evelyn had mastered invisibility. Mark didn't see her fear because she never voiced it. He didn't see her exhaustion because she disguised it with competence. He didn't see her fragility because she had never allowed it to surface. He wasn't reacting to who she was. He was reacting to the version she had shown him. This is why her breaking point felt small on the outside. A misunderstanding, a moment of dismissal, a careless sentence. But on the inside, it was the latest crack in a structure that had been weakening for years. Why the breaking point happened when it did. People expect breakdowns to look dramatic, but strong people rarely explode. They erode. Their breaking point arrives quietly. A single insensitive remark, a moment of being unseen, a small dismissal that echoes every earlier dismissal they swallowed. When Mark told her to calm down, Evelyn's nervous system recognized something her mind had ignored. I am not safe here. I am not seen. My fragility has no place in this relationship. M, for someone who has carried the emotional weight of others her entire life, the realization that her own weight will never be held is devastating. Not because it's surprising, but because it confirms a fear she's been avoiding for years. Why strong people fear asking for support? Evelyn didn't avoid vulnerability because she thought it made her weak. She avoided it because she believed it made her a burden. Strong people often carry these beliefs. If I fall apart, everything else will fall apart. If I ask for help, I'll disappoint someone. If I show weakness, people will lose respect for me. If I stop holding everything together, I'll lose the only value I offer. These beliefs don't come from ego, they come from survival. And survival habits rarely change until something collapses. The moment she walked away, Evelyn's exit wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of clarity. She wasn't leaving Mark. She was leaving the version of herself she had been forced to become, the version that could never allow herself to break, the version that had to be solid even when she was crumbling, the version that mistook endurance for love. Her tears in the car weren't weakness. They were recognition, a release that had been waiting years to surface. Relief came because she finally stopped performing strength and started acknowledging the fragility she had been denying. The paradox clarified. Alex feared being a burden. Rachel feared being unseen. Evelyn feared falling apart. 3 different stories, 3 different lives, 3 forms of the same emotional paradox. The stronger someone becomes, the more fragile their inner world quietly grows. Because strength built on survival is never the same as strength built on support. The world praises resilience, but few people understand its cost. And the cost is this: if you never let anyone hold even a small piece of your world, eventually your world collapses from the inside. Not because you failed, but because you were never meant to carry everything alone. There are certain truths a person only learns after carrying more than they were built to hold. They don't arrive suddenly. They arrive slowly, in the quiet moments after exhaustion, in the stillness after pretending everything is fine, in the small cracks that form when strength becomes too heavy to wear. One of the first truths is this: strength stops being admirable the moment it stops being shared. People often believe independence is the highest form of maturity, but independence taken too far becomes isolation. Strength taken too far becomes invisibility. When you carry everything alone, you begin to believe that you must carry everything alone, that asking for help is disruption, that needing comfort is weakness, that admitting fear is failure. But human beings were not designed to be self-contained systems. Even the strongest structures collapse when no one checks for fractures. Another truth emerges only after years of being the reliable one. You cannot be understood if you never allow yourself to be seen. People respond to what they witness. They adapt to the version of you that you show them. If you show steadiness, they will expect steadiness. If you hide exhaustion, they will overlook exhaustion. If you silence your needs, they will assume you don't have any. This isn't malice, it's human nature. Marcus learned this when Elena tried to reach him but couldn't find a doorway into his inner world. Evelyn lived it every time she whispered, "I'm fine," hoping someone would hear the tremble beneath the words. Visibility is not vanity, it is clarity. And clarity is what allows understanding. A third truth appears after the first honest moment in years. The moment when the strong person finally says, "I can't do this like this anymore." M. No one can meet needs you've spent a lifetime hiding. Even the most attentive partner cannot respond to pain that isn't shown. Even the most loving friend cannot comfort wounds they've never been told exist. Even the most emotionally intelligent person cannot support what you've disguised as strength. For years, Marcus's silence taught the world he didn't need care. For years, Evelyn's composure taught people her life was never heavy. But silence is not stability. It is simply a story other people mistake for truth. Another truth arrives only after walking away from the wrong kind of love or the wrong kind of role. Strength becomes a burden the moment it stops feeling like a choice. There is the kind of strength that expands you, the strength built from courage, effort, clarity. And there is the kind that shrinks you, the strength built from fear, duty, and emotional inheritance. People don't burn out because they're weak. They burn out because they have spent years carrying what was never theirs to hold. Evelyn didn't collapse because she was fragile. She collapsed because she was human. And that distinction matters. Then there is the truth that rearranges everything once you finally accept it. You deserve relationships where your strength is appreciated, but your fragility is welcome too. A relationship that only loves your competence, your stability, your emotional availability, your calmness, is not a relationship. It is a role. It is a performance. It is a version of love that survives only as long as you never soften. The people who truly belong in your life are the ones who notice the tremble in your voice, the tension in your shoulders, the silence that lasts a second too long. They don't need you to be unbreakable. They just need you to be honest. And finally, the truth that threads all the others together. Your inner world is allowed to be fragile, even when the outer world expects you to be strong. Fragility is not failure. It is not weakness. It is a sign that you are alive, that you feel deeply, that your heart has carried love, loss, responsibility, and fear in equal measure. Your fragility does not erase your strength. It defines it. Because without fragility, strength has no meaning. These lessons don't arrive all at once. They gather slowly, in the quiet after a difficult day, in the softness that follows an honest conversation, in the relief of finally telling the truth. But once they take root, everything shifts. You stop apologizing for needing rest. You stop believing you must hold everything together alone. You stop confusing endurance with worthiness. You stop shrinking your vulnerability to make others more comfortable. And for the first time, strength feels less like armor and more like choice. A choice you no longer have to make without help. There comes a moment, usually late at night, or in the quiet just before morning, when the world finally grows soft enough for you to hear the truth you've been avoiding. It doesn't appear loudly. It doesn't demand anything from you. It simply sits beside you like a gentle presence waiting to be acknowledged. In that stillness, your inner world begins to whisper questions you've pushed aside for years. Where have you been holding more than anyone realizes? Where have you stayed strong long after it stopped feeling like choice? Where in your life have you hidden the parts of you that tremble, hoping no one would notice, and quietly wishing someone would? Maybe the questions arrive as memories. Moments when you softened yourself to keep the peace. Moments when you swallowed fear so others could feel safe. Moments when you said, "I'm okay," while something inside you quietly cracked. Maybe the questions arrive as exhaustion, the kind that doesn't come from work, but from carrying a version of yourself that never feels allowed to rest. Or maybe they arrive as clarity, that sudden, unmistakable recognition that the life you're holding together no longer reflects the life you want to live. These questions aren't here to judge you. They're here because something inside you is finally ready to be seen, ready to be understood, ready to stop carrying everything alone. If you stay with these questions long enough, you may notice something surprising. Strength and fragility were never enemies. They have been trying to coexist inside you from the very beginning. One protects you, the other reveals you. Both belong to you. And maybe, just maybe, the invitation life is offering now is to let yourself be both. Strong enough to stand, fragile enough to feel, brave enough to rest, human enough to be held. Your inner world is not asking for perfection. It is asking for permission. Permission to need. Permission to soften. Permission to be honest in ways you've spent a lifetime avoiding. And the moment you allow yourself even a fraction of that honesty, you step into a different kind of life. One where strength doesn't silence you and fragility doesn't shame you. One where both sides of you are finally allowed to breathe. If you've stayed with this story until now, there is a part of it that likely touched something quiet inside you. Something you don't show easily. Something you've carried alone for longer than you admit out loud. Maybe you recognized yourself in Marcus' steady voice, the way he held everyone else together while quietly unraveling in places no one could see. Or maybe it was Evelyn's story that echoed inside you, the calm exterior, the practiced resilience, the exhaustion of being the one who never lets anything fall apart, even when something inside you is begging for rest. Maybe you've lived moments of both, being relied on, being admired, being the one people trust, while silently wishing someone would ask the second question, the deeper question, the one that says, "I can see you're tired. Tell me the truth you've been hiding." So let me ask you gently, without pressure, without expectation, which part of this paradox felt closest to your own life? Was it the weight of always being strong? The fear of letting someone see your fragility? The loneliness of being understood less than you give? Or the quiet hope that one day someone will recognize the softness you've kept hidden? Behind all that composure, there is no right answer, only the one that feels honest to you in this moment. And if you feel comfortable sharing it, I would truly love to hear which part of this story spoke to you the most. Wherever you are right now, whether you're still holding more than anyone realizes, or you're slowly beginning to set pieces of that weight down, I hope you remember something simple and quietly life-changing. Strength has never meant the absence of fragility. Strength is what allows fragility to exist without shame. Those parts of you that tremble aren't proof that you're failing. They are proof that you've been human in a world that moves too fast to notice how much you carry. And even if no one has said it clearly before, you deserve a life where your inner world is not something you have to hide. In order to stay loved, you don't have to keep tightening every muscle to hold everything together. You don't have to keep proving your worth through endurance. You don't have to keep standing alone just because you've always known how. There is a version of your future where resilience doesn't feel like obligation, where strength doesn't require silence, where the parts of you that feel breakable are treated with tenderness instead of judgment. A future where people stay not because you hold their world together, but because being with you feels honest, gentle, and real. If you're taking even one small step toward that, even if it feels uncertain, even if it feels new, that step matters. And you don't have to take the next one alone. When you're ready, life has a way of sending you people who don't just admire your strength, they understand the softness beneath it.